Welcome, everybody, to the webinar with Steve Tankersley. We're going to let people shuffle in here just briefly. It's filling up rather quickly. We've got about over 300 registrants today. So when it kind of gets to elevation, I'll welcome Steve in here and we'll get started. Thank you so much for attending the webinar today, brought to you by Buildertrend with Steve and the Tankersley. We're going to get into some really great topics, talk a little bit about his business processes, his Buildertrend usages, get all in the weeds. A couple little things while we're kind of waiting for the participants to shuffle in here. During our presentation today, we will be taking live Q&A. And depending on the flow of what Steve's talking about, I may have time to be able to throw a couple throughout, but we will save about 10, 15 minutes for us to actually go through and answer those questions. My only request when we're going through and answering questions is that you use the Q&A area. It makes it so much easier for me, the host, to go through and actually process if we answer those questions or not. If you use the informal chat, that'll go really fast, especially if you guys are going back and forth and talking. And so use the Q&A option so that we can actually see if we've answered that question or if I can answer it while Steve is kind of going through it. That'd be great. I think that we are probably about a good starting point as I went through that. So without further ado, we're going to do intros and then we're going to get into the topics. We got a very short amount of time to cover a lot of content. We just jammed it, packed full of stuff we're going to talk about. To start, my name is Zach Witovich. I am a director of customer success here at Buildertrend. So I help work with the teams to help onboard you to our software and also talk to you about how the software works through the life of your account. And today we have Steve Tankersley. Steve, why don't you go ahead and jump on camera here? Surprise, out of the woodwork in your office in Sacramento, California. Steve, how are you today?
Hey, Zach. Good morning. I'm good.
Good. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
How are things in Sacramento?
That's nice. We finally got some good weather. It's about high 70s today, so can't complain. Head to a Giants game after this. So.
Oh, I think that's a great way to shake off the post-webinar experience. Go check out an MLB game. Good for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Steve, we got about 128 participants in here today, so that's a great number. It's really exciting. If you don't mind, as we go through and we are communicating audience, go ahead and type some things in the chat. Get a feel for it. How is it? Say hi to each other. Where are you located? How's the weather? Anybody going to a baseball game after the webinar? And we're going to get started here. Steve, just for a starting point about your Buildertrend story, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your business and kind of what you build, and then we'll kind of dive into the software and actually look at some of your live account data.
Yeah, I think I want to share kind of how we started as a business, and I think that's important when we talk about how we use the software. So Heather's my wife, and we started our business in 2017. Before that, we were both in commercial construction. So I got my degree in construction management from Sacramento State and worked as a project manager for some of the largest projects in California, hospitals. We built prisons, power plants, and that's actually where Heather and I met. So Heather was also a project manager for a commercial company, and we started having kids and wanted to be close to home and not travel all over the state. So that was a big driver for us to start our business. When we came on early in the business, one of our biggest things when we were in commercial construction is, project management software. That was, every company was using it. And we'd gotten away from Excel spreadsheets and handwritten proposals and all that, many, many years ago. And what I found in residential construction, which is primarily what we do, is that it's a little bit behind the ball as far as compared to commercial construction. So when we first started our business, we want to take a commercial construction approach, and that is critical path scheduling, daily logs, detailed financial management to our business. And that was just what we knew. And Heather actually found Buildertrend. We were looking for something to integrate with our time cards of all things for our employees, and it kind of grew from there.
Awesome. That's an amazing broad spectrum of things that you've done with your business. I know a little bit as far as kind of what you use Buildertrend for. Can you just talk a little bit, like it's a big headline, Buildertrend helps you save 20 hours per week. What was that experience like for you to realize like, oh, I need these tools in order to, do things like save time, save money.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, we came up with that title together, and it's very catchy, right? And it's like, man, how do you save 20 hours a week? Well, it's reality, and I can kind of share about some areas that we save our time. Number one, it's also important to consider what our roles in the business are. So when I'm talking, my primary role is, business development, estimating, all the that marketing, all that back end stuff that's first in a project. I don't actually run very much work myself anymore. I'm really involved in the estimating and the sales process. But obviously, as an owner of the business, my hand is in all parts of the company to make sure we're a success. So Heather runs our operations side, and she has put a lot of the processes that we have in place, and that I'll kind of show you today. How we run Buildertrend. I mean, Buildertrend's like the hub for our business, and it starts in the sales process. And when I talk about saving time, like I like to jump into it, but I'm not running around at people's houses, chasing quotes all the time. I really sell them on our process, and I show them Buildertrend. So I'm basically going to show you guys what we show our clients, and it's all real world projects and how we run our operations.
That's really exciting. Let's not belabor this any further, and let's actually get into your account. If you don't mind sharing your screen and pulling up your Buildertrend account. Just a reminder, if you have questions, use the Q&A. I've been informed from our audience that the chat seems to be disabled. So my co-host, or my person behind the scenes, I should say, I'm flying solo today. She's working on trying to get the chat disabled or enabled. If we aren't able to, continue to use that Q&A for any sort of vocalization. If it's a question, great. If it's a comment, great. We will make sure we hear from you. Try looking for the chat again. If you hover at the bottom, you should see the chat option now. Like I said, if you saw my chat, where you're at, where you're from, we'd love to hear from you. How long you've been with Buildertrend. We got Lucas, who I met at BTU last week. He says it seems to be working now, which is fantastic. Good to see you, Lucas. All right, Steve, let's start with the heart of Buildertrend and talk a little bit about your scheduling process. I think that's where, as a customer success rep, that's where I would start people, because we know, in order to really save money, save time, you need to know what's happening with your project. So what is your scheduling process, and walk us through that?
Yeah, I think schedules are that's the biggest bang for buck if you're looking at Buildertrend and looking to really impress your customer and make your business run better. That's the most heavily probably used feature we have in Buildertrend, and it's really helps us from a lot of different perspectives. And I'll show you a couple nuggets that we do that have helped us over time. But as far as the schedule goes, I'm actually on my home screen for all our projects, and this is what I see. Every morning, every time I log in, I can see to-dos and purchase orders and all this stuff, right? And but if we go into a schedule, I'll pull up a project we have underway. This is an addition, and we're about wrapping it up. I can go into project management, go to schedule, and I'll kind of go back. I look at it a few different ways. I like to look at the calendar view, and I'll tell you what these colors and everything mean. When we first start a project, we have a pre-construction phase for every project. And if you're not doing pre-construction agreements, the one thing I take away from this meeting is not only sign for Buildertrend, but start doing pre-construction agreements. So what I'm going to go back in time is on this edition of when we started working with this client, which was actually in May of last year. When a client first signs up with us, we open their project in Buildertrend. If it's in pre-construction, this left side are all our active projects. And we say it's okay, it's in pre-con, and we don't have an active construction agreement, but we have a pre-construction agreement. This client signed with us in May of 2023, and it's a full design build edition. We started reviewing floor plans in late May, and I'm not going to go through everything on here, but what you start seeing is by June, we started doing drafting. This little check mark means it's completed. And if I open up that activity, you will see that it's assigned to that vendor and it's a color code. We actually made color codes in our company so that everything by trade, so plumbers, blue, for example, is color coded, and then we assign it to that trade. So what's cool here is we've worked with these trades for a long time, and they're integrated in Buildertrend. I would say about half of our trade partners are in Buildertrend and using it actively. So if I assign this to them, they told me, hey, I can start this on June 7th. We need 17 work days to complete. We'll have it done by June 23rd. And it's sent to them to confirm. We also have predecessors and successors. One thing that's better with this than, let's say, building your schedule on Excel is you can do those predecessors and successors. So if something changes, it automatically adjusts your schedule. Anytime you do a scheduling activity, you should always have a predecessor and successor. And you can see what comes up from there. As we go throughout, we update this every single week. And this is what I've shown our clients. I'm like, hey, this is how we manage our design process. We get through design, structural engineering. This was July. And then they can see, okay, we have a site subtrade walk on August 15th. Floor plan reviews are still finalized, and they signed their proposal on September 11th. We were in permitting at that time, and I'll skip forward to past Thanksgiving. We kind of waited till after the holidays to start this, and we started this edition on this is our first project of the year we started, and we dropped materials on January 2nd. So if I kind of go to where we're at right now in April, I can skip forward, and today we're finishing up baseboards and casings, finished up our QC yesterday, interior house painting starting, and the client can always go ahead and see, hey, when's my project going to be done? We're turning this space over to the client on May 13th. So we're building the schedule in advance. Schedules do change. They tend to be fluid, right? Things change. Painter finishes early, or we're always adjusting and marking this up.
That's awesome, Steve. If I could just tell you're a power user of Buildertrend, you've got all these little things built into your workflow, to the colors, to the subs you're doing. One question that we got that I think is really relevant from Lucas actually is, from your scheduling process, are you templating these ahead of time? You mentioned you build them ahead of time. Is that a template that you've established, or is this something that you're doing pre-con job?
That's a good question. We've built out templates in our company. So if you go to right here where you see jobs, I can switch to templates. And when we start a new project, we'll open up a template for, let's say, I have a template for a bathroom remodel right here, let's say. So that template's been generated. We upload it. We can copy from a previous project. So like this, let's say this project is just like one we finished. What's cool is we can go through and copy that actual as-built schedule and transfer it over to the new project. One thing I also wanted to touch on, Zach, something that's really cool that I've shown some people before that we do. If I go to all my projects, let's say I click all 26 listed projects, and I go to schedule, we actually put a schedule. We self-perform, so we do have carpenters on staff, and we self-perform work. We created a vendor in our Buildertrend called ZZTCI, and we can actually assign our work to that. And so what we can do is always, one challenge we always had with self-performing is keeping guys busy all the time. So I can go in here and go to all my jobs, and this looks like kind of a mess, right? There's all this stuff going on. But I can go to filter, and I can go assign to ZZTCI.
Oh, we're pulling out the placeholders. We're really about to just blow their minds.
And so if you self-perform work, this is where you can see where your holes in your schedule are. So right now I can see that, hey, next week we've got a hole coming up. What are we going to fill that with, right? We've got a lot of jobs right now in design, and we're looking forward to where that is. So we can see right now that this is where all our self-perform work, whether it's door hardware, cabinet hardware, inspections, doors, we self-perform carpentry, and we can always see that upcoming hole. So that the biggest complaint that a lot of trade guys have is like, there's no consistency in work. We're always looking, how do we schedule our starts so that our self-perform crews are always busy.
That's a brilliant workaround. I don't know if I've seen that one, Steve.
Yeah, so it's something that they kind of came up with. I don't know if I'm sure there's other people who do it, but I've shown people and they're, oh, that's pretty cool. So
I love it. We've got a few kind of schedule related questions I want to touch on. Some are process related, some are actually feature related. Rachel asked specifically about the list view, and if you could just show that. Do you look at other views? And then another one of our guests at the top, Greg, asked about, or no, excuse me, Tony asked about your Gantt chart view. So are all your projects through the Gantt chart in Buildertrend, are you using that part of it? Or, I'm assuming you're using scheduling for all of your, or Buildertrend for all your scheduling purposes as well. You're not using another tool like Microsoft Project.
no, so when we first started the company, we didn't have Buildertrend, and I was using, Primavera, I was using Project, and those are all great software tools. They're just not very user friendly. So I tend to look at calendar view. When I talk about different views on here, you have a Gantt chart, which I'll show you that is. That's what you typically see in, project management, scheduling, construction, commercial. List view is nice because you can kind of see everything organized very quickly. So touching on list view, if I have to go back in time on a schedule, significant amount of time, all the way back to, let's say, May, I can quickly go and see this, and I can see where things are checked off, right? So this is as we go, we're also updating the schedule. Gantt chart view works well. It shows you all your predecessors and successors, and this is more of your traditional project management view. It shows you where your critical path is, where your float is. This is all great. I don't tend to use this that much with residential construction. Our clients like to see the calendar because that's how we typically look at scheduling in our lives and then see what's going on. So this is a much more simplified view. But if you're working commercial a lot, and we've done a lot of commercial work, the owner may require a Gantt chart view, and that's what's cool here is you can you can turn it on. You can turn on your critical path and see where that is. The highlights. So.
Love it. Yeah, it's very use case dependent, and some of it's preference too. People like different visuals for different things. One of the great things about Buildertrend is it can offer all of that, and for whatever your use case is or what you're visually keen to, we're able to provide that. Meg Billings, also friend of Buildertrend, had a question about sharing that with your clients. Are you letting customers view your schedule, and if so, are they able to see the whole schedule, or how is your process around that experience?
Well, one thing in commercial construction, a lot of times we would have there'd be an actual schedule that we had as a company and nobody else saw, and there would be the owner facing schedule. And I never liked that. I didn't think it was very honest, transparent. We have one schedule that runs the whole job. Our client sees the same schedule, our trade sees the same schedule, we have the same schedule. So what you see here is what our clients see. We can turn it off. I can go ahead and just turn the schedule off. Boom. Now the owner can't see it anymore. So if we do this when we're making updates, and we don't want the owner to constantly be notified that there's an update or something shifts, we'll turn it off and make our updates. But every schedule we have is what the owner sees. And when I'm doing a sales meeting with a client, I'm pulling up an actual project. So let's say they have a similar addition. I'll pull this up and say, this is how we communicate. This is how we schedule. And a lot of times they're like, wow, I've never seen anything like that, because they can pull up on their phone, they can see it all.
Yeah, people love to talk about it with their friends and families. I actually have an employee at Buildertrend who's building a house, and they don't use Buildertrend, and it's been funny because he's been like, if only they had a tool where I could see where they're at to build the home. And even just from a consumer side, it's opening up that transparency. Some people, David asked, do your customers want to see this information? I assume you're kind of sharing it proactively because you just believe it's better for you in the long run. Talk about time saving to share it so that they know. Is that kind of how you came to that conclusion?
Well, everyone's available, and we want to onboard our customers. When we first sign up with them, we do bring them on and say, hey, this is our. I would say 75% of our clients use it. There are the 25% like, hey, just tell me what's coming up, and that's okay too. We're still going to operate this because this is how we operate our business. It's no different whether they choose to log in or not. One thing I do, I just finished running a project recently, and when we talk about saving time, this is a huge thing for us. Where if the client, the clients are busy too, maybe they don't want to meet every single week, and they have jobs and stuff. What we do is we'll jump on a Zoom call like we're having right now, and I'll share my screen. I'll go through the schedule because we do weekly owner meetings. So let's say it's every Thursday. We'll pull up our schedule and say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, this week we got doors installed. Those are done on Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we got the doors and cases going on, house paint, and this is what's coming up. Our look ahead, right? Next week we've got interior painting. We're setting trim, and we're still on track for a final inspection on May 6th, and we're going to turn that over to you on the 13th. So I use this when we talk about saving time. Those little hours add up. So instead of me showing up to their house and trying to print off a copy of the schedule and reviewing it with them, this is so much more efficient to go on a Zoom call, to jump through it with them, or pull up my iPad and go through with them on site.
That makes a ton of sense. And someone did ask if this was available on the mobile app, and you just mentioned it. 100% functionality out on the field. You're able to use this to show your customers wherever you are, whether it's an iPad, on an Android device, or even if you have just a tablet that you are using the cloud-based desktop version. That is one of the most popular ways to get customers information. You're obviously not always going to be in your office.
So yeah, Zach, we everyone in our company has a tablet. Our carpenters, us, and Buildertrend's loaded on there. They're all LTE, wireless, so we can go online and update this stuff all the time. On the back end, when I'm going through this with customers, I like to show them what they see, because what we see is pretty close to what they see, but they don't see a lot of stuff. And so what a lot of people don't know is you can actually click this little house here. It says view owner site. And this is what my client sees on their end. So anytime when you're making changes or you're doing stuff, you want to know what they see, you can pull that up. And so I can go through, this is exactly what my customer sees when they log into their account, and they can see their schedules online. And what you see here is a little different than what I just showed you. The schedule's the same, but now we got all the daily logs up overlaid on top of that. So yesterday, we have a daily log for painting and trim, finish carpentry. It looks like painting got started a little early. So they can go and click up that daily log and, hey, this is what's going on, and then some photos of that work. So every single day we're taking pictures, we're doing daily logs, and then it gives us a really good record of what we did in that job.
Love it. Love it. Just in the kind of sake of time, we're covering a lot on the schedule specifically, which is fantastic. You just touched on daily logs, which is where we want to take it. I think that's an important piece to this experience too, is that you're using the schedule and that's moving information, and then you're using the daily logs to kind of give updates. I want to make sure we have enough time to also cover another popular part of the platform, which is the financials. And that's where a lot of people is the anxiety is. They're like, scheduling, I've got processes, I've got document storage, all those things. How do you run your financials? So let's start with your estimating process. One quick thing, very high level, kind of what is your flow for the estimating and how are you getting that information out quickly?
Yeah, that's just kind of my wheelhouse. So with estimating, we're in pre-construction, we're doing budgeting. I'm still, you can chastise me, I still use Excel. I'm not like 100,000% into Buildertrend on everything. I use Excel, I build out my estimates, but I do my estimates and my proposals in Buildertrend. But it really starts with one of the first things I really like to working with in Buildertrend that I use in commercial construction. Number one, I didn't have a database of all my subs. I kind of had people in my phone. I was like, hey, here's a concrete guy. I never had a really robust subcontractor database. So having that in Buildertrend is great, and having bid invitation software. So if I go in here and I go to bids, it really starts with where we're going to get our bids. And so I create bid packages, or we create bid packages for every single trade. And then we send out those bid invites. And when our trades are, instead of me emailing, Joe, the concrete guy, if this is my scope, like I can actually create a bid package and send those out. So this is, again, that same project. And we'll write it's a very basic addition, but excavate, pour new perimeter footings per plans, dated this date, drill and dowel, and we attach some of the plans. So this is really cool, where we can create our scope of work, attach our plans, and send it to whoever we want to. I can go in here, I sent it to one concrete sub, but I can send it to 5 if I wanted to. We put all the job walk information in there, and then they respond typically on here. This contractor actually emailed their bid, but I can go to maybe our drywall guy, and then they come through and they submitted their bid. It comes on they write their scope of work in and their cost, and from here I can actually I can approve it and create a purchase order from there.
I love it. And
once we have all the bids back, go ahead.
Oh, keep going. There's a little delay on my end, so I cut you off. Sorry.
Well, once we get all the bids back, we go through in the estimate, and we create this in here, and I can see I create I actually have templates for this, and I put everything in there, and then I can release the proposal to them. This client signed it on here, and we send over our long form contract. I'll show you what that looks like from a proposal standpoint. It looks really professional. Everything is how you can format however you want to. We've set it up, per CSI divisions, so divisions 1 through 16, and clear scopes of work. This is a lump sum job. We do a lot of cost plus work too, and so there's a different format for that. I can share it too if anyone wants to see that.
I love it. Steve, I'm curious, are you sending these bids out to subs for them to give numbers, or is it a mechanism of you to communicate with subs, kind of like that you're going into a bid conversation, or is this how you're collecting the actual price?
Well, once we've got the budget established on the project, we do a lot of internal budgeting on the back end, and we know the scope of work. We'll release the bid packages once everything is designed. And what we're selling the clients is this process, and we're often selling, hey, we're going to get a couple of bids per trade, and we're really going to try to narrow this down. My trade partners know that. We'll do job walks, trade walkthroughs on these jobs. But we don't send out those invitations to bid until we have everything finalized, as far as design selections go and everything. And again, we don't just really bid work. Everything's through a pre-construction and negotiated agreement.
That makes a ton of sense. As you're flowing into those bid processes, you're collecting the information, and you're talking about the PO process. Couple questions that are kind of related to this. Are you treating, from some of our attendees, are you treating your POs as a subcontract to kind of lock them in to perform the work?
Yeah, we don't rarely ever sign a subcontractor's proposal, just because we have our own terms and conditions. So we have a master subcontractor agreement. When they start working with us, they sign that agreement, and then we write a purchase order for every single trade. So this is that job. I have 25 purchase orders written for that job. I can go back to concrete, for example, and we write a purchase order. We do attach, I copy their scope, and we do attach their proposal to it. I don't sign their proposal typically, and we issue them a PO, and then all the lien waivers and all that go in there too as well.
Perfect. I love it. And so kind of related, I've had people ask about what your subcontractors are able to use with Buildertrend, and I'll kind of answer. Certain features do require that they have an access to login. So that would be things like to-dos, accessing files, because those are pertinent job information that need to be part of kind of that communication chain. So if you wanted to update the subs on it, they would need to opt into creating a login, which is totally free for them, doesn't cost anything. But for certain things like purchase orders and bids, because they're outside the starting point of the job and you need to get their information to get the work or perform the work or execute the project, they do not need a login. So there is some nuance there about kind of where they come in and out of the job scope. But it is possible to send them a PO and get approval to do that work with that sub, and a bid to get numbers in order to complete the estimate. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, so Zach, one thing that we do, a lot of our, I would say 75% of our subs are in Buildertrend. There's 25% that aren't, and so we still issue them a PO because it updates our financials in the back end, and we'll just get a wet signature on that, and then we'll just manually approve it on our end, and then upload the wet signature. So you can I encourage your subs to be in Buildertrend, but not everyone's going to be okay with that. Not everyone's going to do that. Not everyone's, technically literate, right? So we understand that, and you can override it and improve it on your own end.
Yeah, and this is kind of related to a question that we got as you were talking about the schedule and the homeowner experience, but also in the sub world. So different various tech adoption with the people that you're working with. Do you have an onboarding process for, let's say, a homeowner when you're talking about Buildertrend, or the subs if you're like talking about them using Buildertrend? Like, kind of what's your approach to get people at different levels of skill with technology to use the technology?
Um, that's something we could definitely improve upon. I'll be honest. We are an open book, and when our subs want to know about how to do something, we're happy to train them on that. We probably should do an onboarding process, and I mentioned it with our subcontractors, and with the homeowners as well. In my experience, I found it's pretty intuitive. Sometimes people have access problems because maybe the schedule's not turned on or something. But in my experience, it's pretty intuitive, and we rarely get like a lot of really frustrated people. Either they're going to use it or they're not going to use it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that when you run a business, when you're trying to improve processes, everybody has things that need to like be polished a little bit, reduce a little friction, or sometimes you don't have anything, and it just takes listening to each other in order to get that perspective. So at the very least, it's good to hear even from an expert like you. Like, there's always things that we could always try and improve with it. With the functionality is there, but getting others to use it is definitely one of the bigger challenges of having technology, and getting people to kind of change their behaviors is no easy task, right? Steve, we've talked about the estimate and your PO process and bids process. What about the budget? That's a huge piece around the why. Like, why do we use these tools? What are we trying to get of it? So how often are you using the budget features, and what are you using it for?
Well, and that's really where Heather really excels in our business too, is the financial side. We do run a work in progress report every single month, a WIP report. If you're not doing one, I encourage you to reach out to. We're happy to give our template if you need it. But that's number one, is it's appropriate data. So for us, Buildertrend is we have our own template for our WIP, and Buildertrend can also generate this for you as well. And that's the biggest thing, is most construction companies you hear about that get in trouble is they don't know how much money that they have is theirs or their clients, right? Are they overbilling or underbilling? So we use Buildertrend to understand of where we're at in the process of, are we overbilled with the client? Are we underbilled? And then, making sure we're okay financially, right? So that comes down to the granular level on the project, and making sure that our estimates are dialed, our percentages complete are dialed, and we're able to run that WIP report accurately.
I love it. That makes a lot of sense. That's my personal preference to when I try to get customers to use Buildertrend effectively. I usually will show them the budget and be like, don't you want something that tells you where your money's going, where that things went wrong, how good at estimating are you actually comparatively? But then you have other tools out there, whether you're using Buildertrend's WIP or an external WIP process, which is pretty common. Buildertrend's data is still feeding those insights in order for you to know exactly kind of where you need to be billing or underbilling, overbilling, so on and so forth. Steve, I got a great question from someone that you know very well, Heather. What's your favorite Buildertrend feature?
Well, I like the daily logs, right? And so for me, it's about saving time, and I like to see what's going on in the job without being on the job every single day. And so on the mobile app, there's an activity feed. It's also on the desktop. It's kind of like your Facebook feed, right? You can kind of swipe through it and see what's going on all your jobs. But you go into the daily logs, see what's there, see what's going on, see what's been noted. Our project management team will put pictures up every single day. And I say every week, like I see a photo of something, I'm like, I don't remember putting that in the estimate, or, that doesn't look right. Right. And so, it doesn't replace going to the job site, because that's important, but it also helps me have a finger on the pulse on all the projects.
I love it. That's another one where it's such a simple tool that you really don't think is going to be something that moves the needle. I actually was working with a different customer just a couple of months ago where I was talking to them about using daily logs. And they were like, I don't know if I would ever use this. They're like, I don't understand why I would go about doing these things. I was like, well, think about it as a way to kind of stay in touch without having to go to the job site, have to check in with your guys. You may have to train them in order to make them start, making it part of their ritual of the day, right? But now 2 months later, I asked them, I was like, how are the daily logs going? They were like, Zach, it's changed the way that I run my business. And it's as simple as like knowing what happened, the pictures, catching things that you had never thought were, part of the process. And it's led to them to make decisions about how they even run their projects because they're able to stay so in touch without having to kind of be there all the time. Uh, don't know if that resonates with you, Steve, but it definitely was kind of like funny to hear someone be like, I don't think I really need that. And they're like, that's my favorite feature.
Well, yeah, number one, it makes it so easy to sell your process to your clients. When you have a client sitting here and you're talking about a $250,000 addition, and you can show them this is how the process went and this is what my job looks like. You can tell them it's clean, but when I pull a picture like this is how my job site looks, like wow, that looks really clean. That's just a random day in April. These aren't staged photos. That's number one. Number two is, as a contractor, our biggest, we have a ton of risk. We have minimum 1 year warranties. A lot of these projects, new builds, we have 10-year structural warranties in California. To have this record, I can go back to jobs from 2018 and see what we did on every single job. It's all archived. And, at the end of this project, I have, 800 photos of it, and I can see pretty much from every angle. And so when a client, and also, it just helps, understand like, if we have to forensically look at a job that went over schedule, why did it go over schedule? We worked every day, but were we efficient? What were we over on? And also just seeing all the little things that you catch, right? Like, construction's not perfect. We went over a box here, and like our field team is circling this and like, hey, we need to chip out the stucco on this box, right? And those are the things that they just eat at your profit and your client, satisfaction at the end of the project when they're not addressed. So if you can capture them now, address them, address the issues now, that'll save you in the end.
I love it. This has flown by. We're down to only about 7 minutes left. So for those the questions are flying in, Steve, we're not going to be able to get to all these things. I will pull these from the list and I will follow up with you if you don't mind giving me a little bit. I'll consolidate some that are similar and I'll follow up with each of you individually kind of to try and get you more information. I've got quite a few questions as a theme around our sales process, which wasn't on the script. So I just want to point out, we're throwing you a curveball here. Don't want to catch you too much off guard, but are you using Buildertrend for your sales process, or are you still using like an external tool in order to kind of bring information in? Like, to me, when do you bring information into Buildertrend, or have you migrated entirely?
Well, this is my biggest time saver. And because before, a few years ago, I'd be running all over town. I drive an hour to go see someone's house, talk with them. And we flipped the script about 2 years ago. And with our pre-construction process, we have a nice office and we invite our clients down to our office. Instead of going to their house, I go, hey, our first meeting is either going to be on Zoom if you can't make it, or better yet, come to our office. We've got an 80-inch TV. I hook my computer up. I start talking with them. I try to understand what they're looking for. And it's so much easier to tell a client that this is your neighbor's house. It's $250,000. This is what a $250,000 remodel looks like. Because our biggest obstacle in our industry is all the information that's out there is bad information. People think they can do a kitchen remodel for $40,000. They think they can do a bathroom remodel for 10 grand. And so I show them, this is a real client. This is a real process. This is how we work. And this is the entire life cycle of the project. And so by showing them on Buildertrend, it's way more efficient than going to their house that I tape measure, measuring their rooms and taking photos and telling them to get back to them. I go through this process. I go, does this seem like it's a good fit? Yes or no? If they say yes, this is our next step. Really, our process kind of sells itself. This kind of conversation we're having right now is the exact conversation I'm having with our clients.
I love it. I just want to kind of take this out of the chat. I know it's breaking my own rules. Can you give some other specific examples of how Buildertrend is saving you hours in your week and time?
The biggest savings is really just not running around town to every single job. So number one, I know how jobs are running. Number two, the sales process. That's my biggest, chunk of time. You also, by setting up, job walks with trade partners and getting invitations to bid out and saying, hey, we have a job walk from 9 to 12, and this is how it's staged. Instead of like, I'm gonna meet my stucco sub, and meet my electrician the next day, and like, it's just disjointed. We can really consolidate those and save that time. Also, there's so many different areas. A big feature that we use is our to-dos and having templates for everything. So instead of resequencing in every single job, they have similarities. We have to-dos for a new home build, let's say, for every single phase of work. We don't have to recreate the wheel every single time. We can just upload a template and we can follow the checklist and follow the process and the SOP for that job. It's a huge time saver.
Interesting play off of this. So I know we've got Heather in the chat. Jake asked in the QA, does Heather have a list of things if she doesn't mind typing out? What does she love about Buildertrend as well, for if she doesn't mind sharing those? About 4 minutes left. Want to respect everybody's time. We touched on this kind of indirectly, but I think it is a feature that is, if I had to be like, what features would I start a new customer on to get them to be excited and be like, this is going to really make things happen? For me, it's budget, because it shows you kind of how you can get control of your finances and the big picture of why you put the inputs to get that information. And then change orders. What about your change order process? How do you handle that? And are you using Buildertrend's change order feature?
Yeah. Every change order, if you're not doing written change orders, you have to. They're all written and they're signed, right? Not every change order has to be bad. Not every change order has to be has to be money. I have $0 change orders on this project. There's credits on this project, but everything is accounted for. There's been 19 change orders on this job. That doesn't mean it's bad. For example, here's a no-cost framing layout change. It wasn't in the plans, so it's a change order, right? That's what a lot of contractors fail to do. We wrote an RFI on this. And in here, this again in Buildertrend, we were using the RFI feature. We got a response, we documented it, we saved it, the owner approved it. So, again, we use a change order process, yes, for costs. I have some cost change orders on here. We gave it to at cost for the client. It was kind of, it was a one-off thing, and they can see the breakdown. But everything really needs to be signed, right? So we use this, it actually links to our budget. And so when we do a roof repair, let's say we assign it to the roofing cost code, and our budget updates accordingly once it's approved.
And this is one that I've seen it personally save people. You talked about risk earlier, nothing worse than a disagreement about, well, you said you were going to do this and there's no documentation. Avoids any sort of miscommunication, but also it flows seamlessly into your budget, into other areas that affects the financials. So you're also not missing dollars.
I mean, Zach, too, it also gains a little goodwill with the client. So a lot of stuff, sometimes we're not perfect, right? And we need to do a change order because we missed something and it wasn't in our scope. But if you can do some stuff for free, clients kind of forget about all that free stuff at the end of the project. And, hey, we had to throw out the wall at the kitchen. It cost us some time. We did it for no cost, and the owner signed it. So at the end of the project, when they're, it happens, right? People are frustrated. They're like, hey, it's 10,000 over, we said it was. Like, those conversations happen every once in a while. Like, well, yeah, but what are all these things we did for you guys for free? You have a record of that.
That's a great point. Everybody, wants to be able to have those conversations with their customers, and this just makes it so that there is this sort of like ability for you to control the conversation, as you pointed out. Greg asked, or George asked, do you use change orders for cost plus jobs as well? Do you do different kinds of contracts, or are you all cost plus? Like, what's your structure around your estimate or your contracts?
Yeah, I mean, we're moving to cost plus for most of our projects, especially as they get larger and more complex. Our average job size this year currently is around $700,000. But for cost plus, this is where Heather has really dialed this in. We have a contingency that's built into the budget. And we use the change order process to kind of bill against that contingency. So let's say we found something buried underground while we're building the foundation. We didn't expect it. We have a $40,000 contingency. We'll do a $0 change order to the client, and it draws against the contingency. So you can use that change order process just to keep your budget trued up.
Love it. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, we're just out of time, so I'm going to have to pick one last question that we can kind of get into. And I think it's a really important question. We've got a mix of people in the participant list today. We have current customers who've been with us for a while or a long time, to people who are not customers. And I think this is important because me in customer success, spending time with builders, getting them to change their businesses is not an easy job. And contractors have established processes. There is no right way necessarily. There's no industry expectation. And like in some other parts of business, what's the expectation for someone that you would say to get up and running with Buildertrend? If you were going to sign up, and you can see the benefits, going to save time. How long did it take you and Heather to really feel like you were using it, and then kind of your long-term journey of where you are today? How long did it take for you to feel comfortable?
Yeah, the biggest failure I see with people who sign up for Buildertrend, because I talk to a lot of builders in our area, they get frustrated. The biggest thing I see is they try to take on too much at once. And so there are some key things that you can just bite off, and they'll change your business, and it's not that hard, right? Your daily logs, number one, your schedule, number two. And though if you just do those two things, like you're already ahead of like 70% of your competition, I'll be honest with you. Now, if you're going to start getting into the financials, which I encourage everyone to set your company up financially in Buildertrend, you got to link with QuickBooks and stuff. You have to use it all. It can't just be really one foot in on the financials. You can use the bid packages, but you're not going to. It's data in and data out. You're not going to get accurate budgets and accurate work in progress reports if you're not issuing POs, if you're not processing payments through Buildertrend. Like, you really kind of need to do everything. But the biggest failure is like people feel like they're going to sign up for Buildertrend and their company is going to look like what I'm showing you today. This is 5 years of work to get to this point, and using different things and integrating with our company. But use the schedule. That you can do that. Like I'm hit me up after this meeting. I'll show you how to set the schedule if you don't know. Daily logs, and then all of a sudden your clients now can see your schedule and what happened, and that's all they really care about, honestly.
That's awesome. Steve, thank you so much for spending an hour with us today to talk about your processes, showing us a lot, getting into your Buildertrend account, even to share us kind of how you're using it. To those of you that attended today, this was fantastic. Thank you for coming. We hope to bring more content like this where you can hear directly from builders. If we didn't get to your question, I apologize. Like I said, we're going to be able to extract these things, and I will get with Steve and try and get as many of these answers as possible. And I will follow up with you in some form using the email address that you went through today. Steve, I've had a few people ask, just as a final note, if you'd be willing to share some of these templates, which I can help facilitate, if you're open to it. So let's give the people an answer, yes or no, before I kind of go through that. And then secondly, if someone did want to get in touch with you, like what would be the best way for them to kind of follow with what you guys are doing?
I think the best answer to both those questions, we just, send it, Heather and I run the Instagram page. That's us. We're the only ones that access. Send us a message on Instagram. We'll get back to you. And then, if we want to talk about templates, I'd rather kind of know what you're looking for and what
Sure.
your business is, and see if we can help you with that, because our templates aren't perfect either, right? There's a bunch of stuff in there. And so that's kind of a case-by-case basis.
Love it. Steve, thank you so much. Everybody else, the recording will get sent to you by tomorrow from Buildertrend email address, and I will follow up with some of those questions over the next few days. Thank you so much. Please attend some of our other webinars so we can keep doing things just like this. Thank you for your business, and have a great rest of your day. Steve, thank you again.